Good. Awesome.
Yeah, there you go.
Welcome. It is November. It is getting cold out there, and it seems like the MLS deals are getting tighter and tighter to find. So, anyone buy anything this past month off the MLS? Like 2 people. Anyone try to buy anything off the MLS this past month? What's going on?
A handful of offers submitted, but it's only been a week to 10 days. So
Okay.
got a couple of counters and working through it.
Yep.
But with Thanksgiving too, I think it kind of slows things down a bit.
Yeah. I looked at a couple last week, and it seems like as soon as you look at them, you submit an offer right at the list price, but then someone that's not going to rehab it, they're going to live there, and they don't care about profit, overbids and gets it, and it's just been crazy. But it's good to see you guys. Anybody have any good news, anything exciting that they did real estate-wise in the past 30 days? Any conferences that they went to? Closed any deals, bought any deals? All right, we need to start that mentoring program and get you going.
I'll just mention there's a flipper in Northwest Indiana that's been undercutting the market.
Okay.
Doesn't realize the values have gone up. So I actually bought one of his houses and obviously made a cash offer, got it less than what he had listed it for, adding a bedroom, and I'm putting it back on the market for 20 grand more.
So did he already renovate it?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Already flipped.
Interesting. Anyone else do anything crazy like that? Jess and I, we went down to Dallas to listen to Brad Semrock. He's an apartment investor. We were down there for 3 days listening to how he coaches his students on buying 200, 300, 400 unit apartments. It's slightly intimidating when you're used to doing a single family home and you're dealing with one person, and just the dynamics are different, how you analyze the deal's different. You're dealing with, instead of them complaining about a toilet not working, you're dealing with people complaining about their neighbors being too loud, or the pot smoke that's going through the vents, or issues that you don't deal with when you have a single family home. All right, well, welcome again. This has been a fun year. Who's here for at least the second time? Awesome, it's good to see you back. Obviously, you see value in this, and it's been good to have you guys. Our mission is, again, just to bring together investors of all levels to provide an environment for relevant real estate investment education, as well as a place to grow your personal network. I was talking with someone, she was the buyer's agent on a house I listed a couple weeks ago, and she was like, hey, I went to your group. I'm like, cool, how come you haven't come back? She said she didn't come back because she didn't find enough value in it. And I'm like, for $10 a night, there's not enough value in it? The biggest part isn't necessarily the speakers, because the speaker tonight really isn't that good. But it's the people that you meet. Just show of hands, if you've done a deal this year with someone in this room, just raise your hand. I mean, look around. That's probably 30% of the people in this room have done a deal with someone in this room. I lent my money to someone in this room. Someone that came 2 or 3 months ago has a bunch of houses that they're looking to dump, so we're helping them wholesale all those houses. A guy that came a couple of months ago had a house that he wanted listed, and I listed that Friday. We got a buyer Saturday. So it's just about the people that you meet. So there's no value in this group if you don't come, or when we're done, you leave right away and you don't talk to anyone. So make sure you finish up the chili and the cookies, because I don't want to eat all that tomorrow, and stay and talk with some people after the meeting. Real disclaimer real quick, all of the material and content presented is for educational purposes only. It's not legal advice, don't take it that way. The content presented is a recollection of the speaker's personal experiences, their successes and or failures. Consult with your own professionals prior to engaging in any activities. And the success of the speaker is not a guarantee that you will be successful. Most of the speakers that we've had up here this year, they're talking about the good things that have gone on. We don't have time to go into it, but pretty much everybody that spoke had failures as well. The difference is they learned from those failures. All right, a couple of quick tips and tools here. If you're not on the investor group Facebook page, jump on that page. A couple of weeks ago, we posted about a meeting in Valparaiso. A couple of attorneys did it. It was on landlords, and they talked about everything from screening tenants, leases, issues that they've had with evictions. Langer did it. It was super beneficial. But there were 40 people there. Food was actually really good, almost as good as Tracy's chili, but not quite. But that was something that we posted on the group page, and there were 4 or 5 people that are in our group that also went out to that and found that beneficial. So go on there. We'll have upcoming speakers. We'll post special events like that. If you have a deal that you're looking for funding for, you want to joint venture with someone, or you're looking to sell it, you can post it on there. If you have a question about real estate, or you're looking at a deal and you want someone to help you analyze whether or not the numbers make sense, you don't have to post the address so they don't go steal it from you, but post the details and get some feedback on there. So again, just learn from everybody else's success and failures. Again, membership, we have a $90 a year option, $135 for couples, and then that gives you access to all of the recordings for all of the meetings that we've had. So if you can't make it, then you'll have access to that. Speaking of handouts, does everyone have the handout that we have today? If you don't have one, yep. This is not my handout. I did not create it. I got it in the email a couple of weeks ago, held on to it for tonight. I don't have time to talk about 91 different ways to find wholesale properties. I'm going to highlight the 6 most common ways. But if you really are looking to wholesale or looking for off-market properties, definitely take some time to go through that handout. Here are the past videos that we have. We did one with house flipping in June. That one was fantastic. The rental roundtable, tax lien investing, multifamily, and then last month we talked about how to use other people's money, whether it's private money, hard money. So if you missed any of those and you want to grab those, just email that email that was up there, group@invest.NWI, or talk to Tracy tonight and we can get you those videos. If you're a member and you missed tonight, just email me and I'll send you the link for those videos as well. So our second tip that we have, and Justin's going to talk about this.
I was getting ready to eat some more chili. Guess not.
All right. So, this one's kind of an educational one. A lot of people are like, how do you know so much about real estate? Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm not that smart. But we do spend a lot of money on education and mastermind groups, probably $40,000, $50,000 a year. This one right here is something I came across just ironically as I was working with probate records. And it's a company, it's National Business Institute, and they offer classes, and you can do like a whole yearly membership where you have access to everything, or you can do individual. It's a lot more expensive that way, but they have access to a ton of stuff. So like this one, a lot of people are like, hey, I don't know anything about real estate. This might be a good one for you. It's a 2-day course. That one's in Indy, but they have a lot of them at Indy and Wesleyan. But they have everything. A lot of them are like kind of attorney related, so like when I go there, they're like, who's an attorney or paralegal? I'm the guy with my hand not up. But it's good because you get to connect with attorneys and you're learning things kind of from their point of view. Not that you're trying to be an attorney, but maybe to kind of know what they're trying to protect you from. I've done probate, I've done real estate stuff, or like real estate transaction like this year. I'm trying to think what the last one was. But you can check out their website. They have different trainings. I even saw one. There's on concealed carry laws, so you know how to carry, so you can shoot people and not go to jail. So lots of information. Check it out. It's not just real estate related. And I think you'll like it. It's about $1,300 for a year, and that includes all the in-person things that they offer. Illinois, Indiana, any of the states, as well as all their web stuff and teleseminars. So check it out.
Awesome. Yeah, some of the topics they have on there, you can go to their website, are pretty appealing, especially for real estate investors. So every month we like to highlight someone's success story. This is someone who bought a house, flipped it, made money. Sometimes they bought a house, flipped it, didn't make money, bought a rental, did a loan. So tonight, if you want to come on up, this is Nick. This is a house that Nick picked up from a local wholesaler. The local wholesaler thought about keeping it himself because it really wasn't in bad shape, but figured he'd throw it out on his Facebook page for the weekend and see if anybody would grab it. And unfortunately, Nick stole it from him. So I'll even give you.
Scroll through, or?
Yeah. So
Alright, so I picked up house on the 900 block of Spruce Street in Hammond, 34,900 roughly. The house had pretty much nothing been updated in there. Old carpet, really outdated bathroom that was in rough shape. Went through, we redid all the trim, flooring, painted all the rooms, so just complete cosmetic redo. Other than that, a lot of the bones were in pretty good shape, other than possibly next year might be looking to do a new roof on it. All in, I spent about $3,100 in materials. Me and my brother work on them together, and I help him work on his, so we just kind of trade labor back and forth. So we're able to keep the remodel costs extremely low because of that, just doing our own work. So I'm all in right now, including the utilities for 2 months, stuff like that. I think it was like $39,100. And bought it on September 8th. Do a substantial amount of overtime lately. I've been working about 110, 120 hours every 2 weeks, so doing this on the side has been really stretching me thin. So got it leased out on the 12th this month. So it took about roughly 2 months from closing to get it leased out, and we got it rented out for $850 a month.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm pretty happy with our margins on it right now.
that's not too bad.
Yeah, a couple of things troubleshooting. I did find one small little isolated spot of termites in the home. First time having to tackle that, but kind of just did my homework on it. We did the trenching method around the house where you'll get them going from the house to the nest. They pick up the material that you put down, and we haven't seen them since or any other trace of damage. So that was one kind of thing we had to troubleshoot. Exit strategy for it, I'm more of a buy and hold investor. So probably just be looking to pull the equity out of this one down the road and get more. So if anybody in here learned something from the wholesaling meeting today, let me know. We're always looking to buy more. So,
There you go.
Okay, cool.
yeah.
So he's all in at 48. You said $850 a month.
Yeah, $850 a month.
Okay. When you factor in things like a percentage for vacancy, maintenance, rehab, cash flow is probably going to be around $5,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So he's making, that's 12.5% return on his money. In addition to that, you have probably what, 25, 30 grand in equity in the house.
Roughly, yeah. My plan kind of for the first year was just, I know a lot of people average like 10% maintenance, so they have their own ratios. Mine was basically, was everything saved, just put on the side for maintenance for the first year, possibly to redo the roof next year, so that gets updated, so be good long term for that. Did this one cash, so I didn't really have any financing expenses or anything like that, which was nice. Got real creative with a lot of the stuff. All the doors were repainted. We just did stuff like that to save cost. Cleaned up all the same kitchen cabinets that were existing in there instead of redoing stuff like that, which is a huge cost saver. So pretty much we looked at cleaning up anything we could as a cost saving as long as it's in a decent shape where it didn't look too rough. And then also the tenant for this one was a referral off an existing tenant. So we do our own self-managing, so we're able to save a lot of money that way too. So yeah, anything we can do really to make the margins better for ourselves needs a little extra legwork.
Is it a rent to own or just a rent?
No, just a rental. So
Is it 2 bedroom? you said?
2-1 slab, yeah. So it's I think 750, 800 square foot. So a smaller home than him. It's got a 1-car garage with it.
Find any goodies in the garage?
Yeah, lawnmower.
There you go.
Yeah.
When I got it, the guy never had a key for it. So I'm like, well, you couldn't find dead bodies. You might find a nice convertible. Who knows?
Yeah.
So a lawnmower's kind of
Free lawnmower's the deal.
So leave it for the tenant.
Well, we handle grass cutting for him.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's part of the deal.
What kind of flooring did you put in?
Vinyl planking. So I recommend do your homework though with the vinyl planking. I've used it before. Some brands I really liked. The one we got for this one didn't really lock together that well, and it shows. A little downside to it. So
What was the brand?
Shaw.
From the Lords?
yeah, I don't know if I'd recommend them.
I've used the click block.
What's that?
I've used click block in apartments.
Pretty good? Alright, let's keep my eye out for that one.
Life Proof, the new one from Home Depot,
Looks pretty good?
really good.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know.
That's what's
Use a
in
couple of
here.
different brands, I know
What's that?
some are.
That's what's in here.
better than
Life
others.
Proof?
Yeah.
Pricing.
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
Real pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, anybody have any other questions, or?
Awesome, thank you. If you have completed a flip, rental, anything like that, and you would be open to speaking, let me know. We're always looking for people to do the quick spotlight for that. So again, you can email group@investnwi if you're interested in doing that. All right. Now that was a good little house. Didn't need a lot of work. All right, so our speaker tonight is me. I'm sorry, if you guys want to go now, you can. Tracy's gone, so you can't get your money back. So tonight we're going to talk about wholesaling and how to find off-market properties. I know not everybody in here wants to be a wholesaler, but I still have a lot of people that are like, hey, help me find off-market properties. So we're going to talk about mainly about how to find the properties, because that's probably where we spend 80% of our time, is just finding the properties. So I'm going to just go over my story, my background, how I got started in wholesaling. I'm going to walk you through the wholesaling cycle. Again, we're going to spend most of our time on the top, finding the deals, do a little bit about the analysis. Everybody's analysis is going to be a little bit different, so I'll kind of give you some general rule of thumbs for that. Then we'll talk about closing, and then exit strategy. Again, everybody's exit strategy, rental for Nick, rehab for some people, wholesale for some people. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk, wholesalers have a bad rep because of a lot of things they do wrong, they're inexperienced, they're other issues. So we're going to talk about what not to do if you do want to be a wholesaler. And then we're going to talk about what you should do. And then I'll give you a couple of quick tips if you really are interested in wholesaling. Give you a couple of quick tips on how to get started and really get off on a quick path. So who in here has wholesaled a property? They bought a property for X amount of dollars, marked it up, sold it to someone else, assigned it. Just me? Am I the only one who's ever wholesaled a property in here? Awesome. I gave this presentation, Al did. I gave this presentation about 2 weeks ago at a group in Illinois, and there are probably 5 or 6 people in that group that had wholesaled the property. Who's purchased from a wholesaler? About 5 or 6 in here. This is probably a bad question because most of you bought from me, but would you purchase from that wholesaler again? Never? That's fine, I got plenty of other buyers. Oh, I even forgot to take that out of last one. The group that I went to, the guy that runs that group, he really, really hates wholesalers. And he makes it obvious, like even as he's introducing me, he's talking about how bad wholesalers are. So, does anyone know Ryan in here? Okay. Who hates wholesalers like Ryan? There you go. Alright, so just kind of my background. I went to Taylor University, which is over in Upland, Indiana. I got my undergraduate degree in biology, and then after that, and I switched last minute, I was pre-med for 3.5 semesters, and then the last semester I decided that I didn't want to be a doctor because they worked too hard. And I switched to biotech, went to Ball State, got my master's in biotech. The first position that I had, I managed a human genetics lab up at the University of Chicago. I did some really cool research. I mean, like, I did a bunch of articles in, like, Genetics Magazine, which is kind of like the top magazine journal that you want to get published in. Did that for 3 years. I liked what I did there. There was just a ceiling. My salary sucked. The guy that had been in the lab next to me for 15 years was making about 45 grand. So I knew that if I wanted to move on and actually make a little bit more money, I probably had to make a career shift. So back in college, to pay for college, I sold books door to door. So I like sales, I like science, so I was thinking, I want to go sell drugs, be a pharmaceutical rep. So I talked with a guy that I sold books for, and he's like, dude, you're not attractive enough. He's like, no offense, but you don't have what it takes to go into a doctor, strut your stuff, and get him to start assigning your scripts. And I'm like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I thought the idea of having a company car was pretty cool. So he was working for an insurance company that sold supplemental insurance, like cancer policies that pay people money when they get sick, which is actually, you know, I was convicted about the policies when I sold them, But now that I'm outside of that and I see people that are losing their house to foreclosure because of major health issues, it just reinforced how good that policy was. So I did that for 8 years. It was door-to-door, straight commission. So I worked when it was 90 degrees out, I worked when there was 20 inches of snow, because if I didn't work, I wasn't making money. And out of everybody that started in 2008, I finished 4th out of the country for all of the new people, and then 24th out of everybody in the entire company that year. So it was fun. Because it was a lot of residential sales, I worked a lot of evenings, so it wasn't uncommon for me to get home at 9, 10 o'clock. And it just became a grind. I had 3 little kids, so about the fall of 2015, one of my insurance clients did wholesaling here in the area, so he had introduced me to it, and I read about it, and I'm like, yeah, that's not really something for me. You just go on sites like Bigger Pockets and other sites, and wholesalers on there, they don't really have a good reputation because everybody's on there complaining about them. So I'm like, I don't want to be a bottom feeder when it comes to real estate investing. I want to do things the right way. So I did some research, and as I'm getting more dissatisfied with the insurance, I'm reading more about wholesaling and real estate in general. So I decided that I wanted to start wholesaling, but do it differently than all the other people do it. And I'll get into more specifically how I did that. But it was right around September of 2015. I had read a bunch of books on wholesaling. I was already in the process of putting together a cash buyers list. A lot of people have the idea that if you find a good deal, the buyers will come. Well, part of the issues I have with wholesalers is they find a good deal, but the buyers never come because it's usually not a good deal. So I wanted to make sure, since I didn't want to leave a seller hanging, that I had buyers. So I took the route where I built my buyers list up before I started talking to potential sellers. So I don't remember specifically what night it was, but I can remember, and at this time I was slacked off on insurance sales for about 6 months, so my income was bad. I was literally living paycheck to paycheck, and I'm just at home watching Sunday Night Football, and I'm on Craigslist, and I see someone post a house in Hobart that they wanted to sell. The guy bought it a couple of years ago, did half the renovation. It was a house built in like 1880. Anyone buy a house more than 100 years old? Make sure you know what you're getting into. He had a rehab budget of $25,000, and he paid about $25,000 for the house. And between some foundation work he had to do and the electrical upgrade he had to do, because it was all knob and tube, he ran out of money. So the house sat there for about 18 months, and the taxes were like $5 grand a year on it, so this guy was just bleeding, so he wanted to sell it. So I called him, we made an appointment, I went out there, and I knew enough about rehab from doing some renovations around my house, got the house under contract, showed 5 or 6 buyers, sold it, made 8 grand, and I'm like, this was fun, this was easy, I was hooked. So I ended up finding 2 more deals on Craigslist in the fall of 2015, and since then, I've only found 1 on Craigslist in 2 years. So that was probably a God thing, putting me in the right direction. So I decided in January of 2015 that I was done with the insurance and I was going full-time wholesaling. And my wife thought I was crazy. She probably was going to go talk to an attorney about filing some paperwork for some stuff. But I had to make that decision because trying to run the insurance company, I had agents that I was training. I had to focus on the clients. But then my passion's real estate. I'm like, I can't juggle these two. It's stressing me out. I'm putting in twice as many hours. So I just had to burn the boats and go full time at this. And the first 3 months it was a grind. I got 5 deals done those first 3 months. But I worked. I mean, to put in 16 hours a day was a normal day. I mean, because I was taking all the calls, I was doing all the marketing, looking at the houses. Because I wasn't very good at any of the process, my deals were marginal, so I had to work really, really hard to find buyers. And I'm getting $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 per house on an assignment fee. But as every deal I got a little bit better and eventually clicked. Met Jessen at the beginning of the year. There was a house I had in Dyer that was tenant occupied. So the stuff that I was wholesaling was all vacant. It was stuff that I could put a lockbox on. I told them I was wholesaling so I could get in there. I could show a bunch of people. I didn't really have the stress of having to lie to them about, oh, I need to bring over my inspector and whatever. They knew exactly what I was doing. But this house I had in Dyer had a tenant in it. And I talked to them back in like October. They were one of the first people that had called back from some marketing. Called back in January, she's like, I won't buy it. She was trying to sell it to the tenant. I need to sell it. It's 30 grand, but you got to close in like 2 weeks. So I'm like, I need to find money. So Jess and I partnered up on it. We bought it for 30. We ended up selling it back to the tenant for 60, but it took like 4 months for him to get his money. So we ended up splitting the 30. We didn't have to do anything to it other than deal with this tenant that was a pain in the butt, and I understand why the estate was so frustrated with him. So Jess and I took a lot of planting seeds to convince him to partner up with me. We partnered up in October. Don't know what we expected, but it's been a fun venture. We did 17 deals last fourth quarter, and then our goal this year is 84 houses, and I think today, did you get one today?
Yeah.
So we're up to 79 so far this year. So we are very close to reaching our goal. So I've been full-time wholesaling for 2 years. So let's talk about how we find deals. And again, this is where, if you look at our budget, I would say if you take out salaries, 90% of my budget is spent on finding the deals. Because the business won't operate if there aren't deals out there. Now, if you go through all of the houses that we've bought, there's probably, just like the handout I gave you, there's probably 15 to 20 different sources of where we're getting our deals from. Some of them we might just get 1 or 2. The 6 ways that I'm going to talk about tonight on how we find our deals are where the bulk of them come from, but that's also where we're pouring in the bulk of our money. Direct mail. This year will account for about 25% of our deals. Last year, and then when I got started, it was a significantly higher percentage. Part of the challenge, and I'll talk about it, is it seems like everybody goes to a seminar about wholesaling. And this is the thing with wholesaling, you've probably heard this at seminars and podcasts, is the gurus teach it. Now, let's back up a second. Most Americans are broke and poor. Would you agree? What's the average American have in their savings account? 500 bucks? Zero? So when a guru gets up front on the stage and they're high energy and they're excited and they get you all excited about, hey, I can show you how you don't have to have any money. You can make $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 on a house flipping houses. No money, no work, blah, blah, blah. Is people going to get excited about that? Everybody does. So they buy their course, they charge $2 grand on their credit card knowing they don't have any clue where the money's going to come from. They don't know anything about real estate, rehabbing, ARVs, the different markets. All they know is that if they go find a motivated seller, put the house under contract, then they can assign that contract, boom, make 10 grand, and that's as much as they make in a quarter. So because there are so many courses here in Chicagoland doing that, I'll go to a house and they'll have 15 pieces of direct mail because everybody sends it out. So callback percentages, the deals that we're getting from direct mail this year, they're still there, but they're not where they used to be. But the pros with direct mail is the quantity. And if you think of finding deals as like a funnel, at the top of your funnel is all the people that you're going to reach out to. And then you're going to have a certain percentage of people call you back, certain percentage of those are going to want to sell, certain percentage of those have enough equity or they want your lowball cash offer, and then some of those you're going to close on and do whatever you want. So the more people you can put into your funnel, the more deals you're going to get at the end. So the easiest way to do that is with direct mail, because we're in an area where you can mail to 600,000 people if you want to mail to everybody in Lake County that owns a house. I probably wouldn't encourage you to do that because 75% of those people don't have the ability to sell the house because there's no equity. So that's one of the big pros with direct mail is you can send it out to a lot of people. The other pro is that you can send your mail to a very filtered and specific list. So the gurus teach send your mail to out-of-state absentee owners. The idea is if they live out of state and they own property in-state, maybe they're getting tired trying to manage a rental property out of state. The duplex that I listed for a guy on Friday, he was down in Texas, didn't have a good experience with the management company. He's just ready to dump it. He's probably taking a $20,000 hit on it. And if he was willing to take more, I probably would have bought it myself.
Is that still for sale or no? The duplex? Or did you already?
Nope, too late. Sorry. When I list stuff like that, if I don't buy it and I list it, it goes pretty fast.
Was it on your Facebook page?
I did put it on the Facebook page, yeah. So some of the cons with direct mail is it's probably one of the more expensive ways to market for properties. I'll run you through some of the numbers, but on average, you're going to spend somewhere between $2,500 and $3,000 in direct mail just to buy one house. So for a wholesaler that doesn't have any money, it takes a lot of money. When I got started, the very first list I mailed was 250 people long, and I actually hand wrote all of those letters. Yeah, that was rough. My wife did help me for that. But I got a really good response rate, and I was able to get, I think out of that first list, I probably got 3 deals out of that. Now that wouldn't happen today because that same list is getting mailed by 15 other people. Callback percentage is super, super low on your direct mail. Right now we are averaging, depending on our list, somewhere between 0.3 and 0.6% callback. I'll show you the numbers that we have year to date. It's sad. When I got started, because my list was so small, it was very targeted. Because when you go back to, like, when I talk about filtering in specifics, depending on where you buy your list, you can pick, you can do as many filters as you want as far as like property condition, 3-bed, 4-bed, 2 beds. You can do in-state owners, out-of-state owners. You can filter by year built, size of house. I mean, pretty much anything that you can imagine you can filter by, equity and all that. So that's how I was able to really target people that I thought were more motivated. And when I say motivated, anybody's motivated to sell their house for the right number, given their situation. A big thing when it comes to direct mail is we get a lot of tire kickers. I'm going to play a couple of audio clips for you of people that have called in. I mean, people are like, hey, I got your postcard in the mail, I got your yellow letter in the mail, what do you want to offer on my house? Well, I don't know, I need to see it. Well, you sent me mail, you should know all about it. Well, I sent mail to 15,000 people, I didn't research all of those houses. Are you really interested in selling? And so you got to deal with a lot of people that just waste your time. And again, it's just super, super saturated right now. So let's see if these clips work. And just as a disclaimer, I was going to do one of those top 10 lists where you might want to be a wholesaler if. These clips may, I think 2 of them have some colorful language. So if that offends you, 1, you probably shouldn't be a wholesaler and send out mail. And if we had hours tonight, I could play you hours of audio and voicemails of people calling. But this just kind of gives you an idea of the type of calls that we get from people.
This is Justin. This is 9100, which is 129th place. Received your freaking envelope in the mail. You know my house was for sale. Today's your lucky day. You got that, don't sell. I'm asking $320 for it. You come up with $300, come knocking at my door. You hear me, boy? So you just come right down here to finger cup and you just buy my house. So if you come in with $300 worth of dead president, and it's yours. Thank you very much. And my number is 219-616-8992. You just come knocking with that money at my front door, and I'll find this house right over to you today. That's the deal with that.
So we're wholesaling that now. It's now $325. Oh, he's still going.
Motivated.
He called Friday night at like 10 o'clock. I believe he might have had a drink or 2. We get a lot of calls like that. The funny thing is, right behind him is brand new construction for $250. So I'm not going to buy his house that was built in 1950 for more than I can buy new construction.
Good afternoon, this is Justin with Region 1 Buyers.
Hey Justin, this is Joe Garza, 2309 Orange Street.
2309 Orange Street, you said?
Yeah, Lake Station. You guys keep on sending me letters every fucking year. Would you stop sending me letters
All right, so
You can filter him out.
he's off our mail list, so all three of these, you guys can go after him. I'll give you the name and number. And this one was really tricky.
Hi, Justin. I got your envelope in the mail, which I get pretty regularly. And I'm at 1105 Martinal Road, Martinal Road in Valparaiso, Indiana, 46383. And
Jot that down,
I'm
guys.
interested in your cash offer, where you'll deliver a check in 10 days. And I like the idea that there's no fees or commissions. I would appreciate the check to be made out to the Western Saratoga's Revocable Living Trust, as you're aware of, for $900,000. And if you want to talk about this, please give me a call, 219-916-6444. So my bottom price is $900,000 for my 6 acres that you continue to mail me bullshit on. Thank you.
So that one was tricky.
I know. I know that. I know it really well.
How much do you think the house is worth?
Not that much. It's right by the nudist colony.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, that probably increases the value.
Exactly.
I Googled him. I was very surprised based on my Google search on his language and
yeah.
I did not call him out. I did not send him a message, but you can let him know.
Yeah.
But I mean, so out of all the mail that we send, 30 to 50%, depending on the list, are calls like that, where they're just calling to cuss us out because we sent them a piece of mail. In the last week, who got a piece of junk mail? Did you call the person that sent you that junk mail, or did you just throw it away? So, yeah. So let's go over some stats. This is what we've done so far this year. We've sent out 78,000 pieces of mail. And again, we send everything from a postcard, which usually runs us about 40 to 45 cents, to an actual letter that we can get done for about 75 cents. Some we do in-house, some we use a third-party mail company just because of the quantity that we're sending out. So we spent just over 52,000. That comes to 67 cents a piece. So out of those 78,000 pieces of mail that we've sent out, we've had 762 people call us back. Okay? So what's that, 1%? Or no? I don't know, that's low. Yes. Out of all of those pieces of mail, we've had 378 of them that are leads. And I have leads in quote because those are people that called saying they wanted to sell. Now their motivation is all over the place. Some are like, I need to sell tomorrow. Some are like, hey, I'm interested in selling if I get the right price. So out of those 78,000 pieces of mail that we've sent out, we've bought 22 houses. All right? So that's 3,568 pieces of mail that we have to send out to get a house. Now if I stop sending mail out, those numbers are going to improve because I still have people that call back after, you know, they'll people that have held on to mail for 2 years be like, yeah, I got your mail, I didn't need you then, but I held on to it, now something came up, I need it. So those numbers will go up, but it runs, for us, we're spending about $2,400 just in marketing in order to get a deal. Driving for dollars, does anyone know what that is? This is something that the gurus teach because it doesn't cost a lot of money. It's super, super expensive. What you do, and I'll walk you through things to look for, but you drive around the neighborhoods, look for distressed houses, houses that look like junk, go on to county records, try to find the owner's name on like the treasurer site where it has their name, mailing address. You send them a letter that you want to buy their house. When I got started in the fall of 2015, I did that, and then I had 2 people that I met off Bigger Pockets that I trained on how to do that. And this is where my door-to-door insurance experience really came in handy. I can drive by a house and I know if someone lives there or not. So I trained them how to do that, and in 6 weeks we sent out 600 letters to people that had junky houses. I sent one, Susan, to your neighbor. He won't sell his house, will he?
Which one?
On your right side. The brick one?
Oh, he will not sell his house.
No.
And you bought the house next door, that's it.
I'm sorry.
I'll sell you their house. They'll stay vacant for 20 more years.
Yep. So we sent out 600, and out of those 600, I probably got 4 deals out of that. Some of those I got right away, some, you know, the mail came back returned. I had to track them down to another address. But you definitely know these houses need work. You know, you're not going to send it to a house that looks nice. You're sending it to really ugly houses. You can control the quantity. You know, if I needed to send more mail out, all I had to do was go drive another neighborhood. The cons, low volume. I mean, again, I had myself and 2 other people that drove for 6 weeks, and we got out about 600 houses. It's very, very time consuming. On average, every hour that I drove, depending on the market that I was in, I would find, so like in a Munster Highland area, in an hour, maybe 10 to 12 houses. Maryville, Hammond, in an hour, I could get maybe 15 to 18 houses. I didn't drive Gary, I didn't drive East Chicago, because then you're getting a house every other house. The leads that you're sending out, they're low quality leads. I mean, when you think about it, if there's a house that's run down, it's vacant, it's abandoned, chances are it's not going to be someone that has a ton of equity and they're just leaving it there. Most of those houses were way behind on payments. They were just starting to get behind. They had no equity. They were bank owned. You can't do anything. You can't call Wells Fargo, hey, I sent mail to your house. It came back returned. I saw that you guys owned it now. I want to buy it from you. They're not going to give you the time of day. But it is a, you know, when the only thing that you're paying for is going to be stamps, the letters that you send out, and just your time. But it is a good way to get stuff out there. So what do you look for? A big thing is landscaping. Right now is a very hard time to drive for dollars because nothing's growing, everything's dying. But during the summer, look for the houses that have grass that's 6 to 8 inches tall. Look for the bushes that are overgrown. Look for trees that are overgrown. I like to call them trees growing out of gutters. They haven't cleaned their gutters out in so long. They got the maple trees that are growing out of the gutters. In the winter, and this has been bad the last 2 winters because we haven't had any snow, but what I'll do is after it snows, I don't go that day. I'll give it usually about 48 hours. I'll drive around looking for houses that haven't had their drivewood shoveled. Now, I don't go the next day because if it's an older lady or whatever and they have a kid that comes over, you got to give them time to get there. But if the snow is still there 2 or 3 days later, either they're on vacation or it's probably a vacant house. And I always like to tie both of those last 2 in, looking for unplowed driveways and the landscaping. Go on days where the garbage pickup is. So if you see they don't have their garbage out, but everybody else does, and the landscaping's bad, chances are that house is in some sort of neglect. I always look for bad roofs, look for the shingles that are curling up or falling off or missing, look for gutters that are falling off, look for garage doors that are all uneven, screen doors that are left wide open, just stuff like that, just issues with the house. And then the last thing is just look for city stickers, depending on what town you're in. If they don't mow their grass or they don't take care of the garbage in the alley, the city's going to slap a big sticker on their front door, send those people mail. So again, it's a super inexpensive way to at least get something out there if you don't have a ton of money. The other way that we get deals is through our website. This is what it looks like when people go to Region Home Buyers. They can put in their address, their phone number, their email. They click on here to get their fair cash offer. Then there's another form for them to send out. Then it gets emailed to us. So a big pro for that is it's time efficient. I don't have to actively do anything for this. People that are up at 3 o'clock in the morning Googling, buy my house, whatever, will find this without me having to actively do anything into it. The people that are typically Googling to sell their house to a cash buyer typically have a higher level of motivation. There's usually something in their situation where they need to sell it fast, or it's a wreck, or whatever the deal is. The cons is you don't control the volume. You know, with direct mail and with driving, I'm in direct control of how many houses I'm putting into my funnel. With the website, you're just waiting and letting people come in. You don't control how many people are going to your website. It's very, very expensive. There are websites like the one that we bought is designed by folks for investors, so it was already kind of pre-built for us. But that costs money to buy it, to maintain it. We also do other internet marketing, and we pay a company $1,200 a month just to maintain our website and our other internet marketing on top of the cost for that marketing. When I first got started, I paid a guy to develop my own website. It looked really good. I paid him a lot of money, which is good that it looked good, but it didn't have any ranking. It took like next on Google to actually find my website. So even though I had a good website and it looked good, it didn't rank high. And I was talking with him, he's like, there's not a lot we can do, it's just gonna take time for it to organically get onto the first couple pages. So if you're in this area, you don't have to do it now, but if you Google any kind of key terms for buy houses, Indiana, put your city in, you're gonna see that we're the top 2 websites. And we've paid good money to do that because we want people aren't gonna go to the 7th page to find your stuff. They're gonna look at the first couple that show up on their screenshot, click on a couple, and that's it. The leads suck. Again, like direct mail, I can filter who's gonna get my mail. I know if they have equity or not for the most part. People that come to the website, they could have bought the house a year ago with a 98.5% mortgage and they have no equity. Or they're in areas that aren't really desirable. We get a lot of web leads from Gary, from Lansing, from Cal Township, from just Illinois in general that we don't want to buy in. We got one today from Morocco, which is like an hour and a half south. I'm not buying a house down there. A lot of times they don't have equity, which is why they're coming to us because they can't sell it any other way. So, social media, Facebook, Craigslist, Zillow, where they're doing like for sale by owner sites. Those are all good sites. Pros is it cheap. Who has a Facebook account? All right, you don't pay any money for it, so there's ways to find deals on Facebook. Typically, if someone's gonna, a lot of people post ads on Craigslist. They'll show a picture, we buy houses. Again, if someone's gonna take the time to click on that link, chances are they are motivated. Cons, again, just like a website, you don't control the volume. Go on Craigslist and go under the for sale by owner house, and you're gonna see dozens and dozens and dozens of those cheesy ads that we buy houses cash. So it's super saturated, and again, the quality is low. Now again, I'm not saying don't do this, it's just one of the dozens of ways that we market for properties, but you can't rely just on this thing. You can't rely just on Facebook or just on a website or just on direct mail. You have to do it all depending on how many houses that you want to find. Bandit signs. Anyone ever see these? Street poles, pegged in the yards. Here's a pro. What's that?
Handwritten.
Handwritten, the fake handwritten ones. Pros is they're pretty cheap. You can go to websites like cheapsigns.com, buy them in bulk. You can get them with the stakes, you can get them for like $1.50 a piece. If you want to handwrite your own, which a lot of people do, they're even less than that. But then you got to go out, you got to put them on intersections that are busy, where you're going to get enough traffic flow. The nice thing about it is you can target specific areas. Instead of marketing to, let's say, all of Maryville, if there's a specific subdivision in Maryville that you really want to buy a house in, maybe you just did a flip there, like, I don't know, Bon Air or something cool like that. You want to buy that house? It's sold, sorry. You can litter them around that neighborhood, and maybe someone in there will see it. You can get a lot out very quickly. So again, that increases how many leads are going to go into your funnel. The cons is, in most towns, they're illegal. So I don't put them out because I'm building a brand and I won't want region home buyers to be looked at by towns in a bad way. I put the signs in the yards of houses I own, and the towns call me, threatening to fine me. I'm like, it's my own house. And they're like, oh, well, then you need a business license to put a sign in front of your own house. So it's not even worth it, in my opinion. I know the people that do it, they all get like burner phones for those. So if the towns do call them, then they'll just toss those signs, get a new phone number, and start over. Again, low quality leads, the people that are desperate enough to call a bandit sign probably aren't going to be houses that are worth, I mean, I know people that make money off them, but again, they're probably not gonna have a ton of equity, they're probably in foreclosure. You have to filter through a lot of tire kickers. The ones that we have had up, the people that call me are other wholesalers wanting to sell me some junk that they have down in Kankakee or something like that. And then finally, they just look ugly. I mean, I think they live. If you're gonna put them out, the best way to do it, and this kind of gets around the illegal part, and I'm not giving you any advice on how to break the law, but if you were to use bandit signs, I would put them out on like a Friday night, keep track of where you're putting them out, go back Sunday night and actually pick them up. Because you're gonna get the most traffic flow on the weekends. You're not gonna have to worry about the towns doing anything because those aren't gonna be out, the code enforcers aren't gonna be out, and then you're not leaving the neighborhoods looking ugly with all your signs that are decaying and falling over, and half the signs don't even work. Now, a couple of quick tips on all of this before I get into this last one. If you're going to do direct mail, if you're going to do website, if you're going to do bandit signs, most of those people are going to contact you through a phone number on the media that you're putting out there. Who thinks it would be a good idea to answer that call live if they're going to call you? If you don't answer that live, the likelihood of ever getting them back on the phone is probably less than 10%. So if you're going to pay all that money or take the time to do marketing, figure out a way where you or someone else can at least answer that call, or have a voice message that specifically tells them to leave their name and property address, and you'll get back to them and get back to them that day. And don't have a voicemail box that's completely full and they can't leave a message. And I'm just using that as an example because I've called plenty of bandit signs to get on their buyers list. They don't call back, their voicemail boxes are full, and it's like, why waste your time and money putting this stuff out there if you're never going to get back to the people? So the last place to find deals is through your network, friends, family, colleagues, people that you meet. The pros is these are cheap. I have a lady that I go to church with who had a parent who needed to sell a house. She called me, I bought it. How much did that lead cost me? Nothing.
500 referral.
Yes.
We did pay that one.
I had a guy that I sponsored his kid's wrestling match. He called me and said, hey, a trustee called me for a bank, they have a house they want to dump, are you interested? What did that cost me?
Sponsor.
The sponsor for $100 plus the $500 referral fee. So $600 versus $2, $3, $4 grand. Our pay-per-click that we do right now, it's probably about $3,600 a lead, or not a lead, to buy a property. So if I can pay someone a $500 referral fee and get all of the stuff that I've got through networking, those have been our biggest profits. So they're cheap. They have trust in you. These people already like you. They already know you. They trust you. And these people typically are high motivation, high profitability. The cons is, again, it's a low volume thing. You can't rely on everybody sending you leads all the time. It's time consuming. You got to get in front of people that you know. And then again, so those are the 6 most common ways. What I did when I was putting this presentation together is I looked at the 78 houses that we bought. I grouped them all into the different categories, and these were the 6 most common for us to find houses. But the packet that I gave you has 85 other ways that you can find houses. And a lot of those other ways cost very, very little money. Now, let me back up a second. What's the value finding these off-market leads? What's the value?
One is less competition.
Less competition.
Prices are better.
Better margins.
Yep. I mean, a lot of you that have bid on stuff on the MLS or have gone to an auction, I mean, you might put, I was talking to a guy, he's put in offers on 5 or 6 houses, full price offers, and he doesn't get any of them because they're going way overpriced. So when you list it on the MLS, you have thousands and thousands and thousands of people that are seeing it. When you're finding off-market deals, you might be competing against 4 or 5 other people that are sending mail or doing other things. So your competition's a lot less. You can find more, and typically your margins are going to be a lot higher. All right, so after the person calls you, you weed out all the people that cuss you out. And again, if you don't have thick skin for this, this isn't something for you. But you gotta weed through all the people and actually find the people that have a reason to sell, they're motivated. And then the first thing you gotta do is you gotta figure out what the ARV is. That's the after repair value. Everything that we do, we have to start from the end and work backwards. So the end goal is gonna be, what's that house gonna sell for someday? And then we work backwards. Well, how do you figure out the ARV? There's a couple of ways to do it. Who goes on Zillow to find your ARVs? All right, one person, 2, 3. Don't do that again. Zillow sucks. Zillow is not accurate, especially in the last 2 years where houses have appreciated so quickly. Zillow can't keep up with that. In Indiana, we're a non-disclosure state. They don't have, as realtors, we don't have to report to Zillow what the houses sell for. So they're just using their algorithms and other data to have a best, their Zestimate. Sometimes it's accurate, but a lot of times it's not accurate. So the best way to find the ARV is through sold comps. So either get your real estate license so you can have access to the MLS yourself, or become good friends with a couple of realtors.
Well, Zillow does list or say how much the house is sold for.
They don't have all the data though. I mean, if I were to...
I mean, the houses I've seen sold, it says, well, it was, delisted, and it's, sold for this.
I did a bunch of market research in Zillow. You can actually go into Zillow's page and look at the accuracy of Zestimates in Chicagoland market. Here's what's really interesting. The Zestimates are only accurate in the, you can specifically target Chicagoland, look at their numbers. Less than 20% of the time are they within 80%.
Well, that's the Zestimate, but I'm talking about the actual sold houses, the houses that sold in the area, the neighbors that sold, whatever.
The comps he's
those
talking
comps
about.
are accurate.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the Zestimate.
The challenge with those comps, though, is you're only getting a fraction of the comps of everything that's sold.
Okay.
So you may see a comp, it may not be a similar house, you may be guessing it off of that, but if you have MLS access, you see probably 10 times the number of houses that sold. So I used Zillow when I got started. It put me in the ballpark, but when you're talking about trying to make $10,000 on a wholesale deal, if your ballpark's off, you might not make anything. So same with if you're flipping. If you're trying to make a certain amount of money and your ARV's off and your rehab's off, your profit can disappear pretty quickly. So when I say get buddy with a couple of realtors, you don't want to burn one person out. Hey, find this, what's this house worth? Give me a comp. Because it probably takes 10-15 minutes to get a really good comp, because you got to go to if someone gives me an address, and I think I still got to do your stuff, I apologize. It's been busy. When someone gives me an address, hey, find a comp on this house, the first thing I need to do is I need to go to the assessor's site and figure out what that house is. Because if I'm looking at a bi-level versus a ranch that's on a slab with no basement, I don't care if they're next door, they're going to have two totally different sales prices. I can't compare those. So I got to go figure out what the house is, and then I go on the MLS, do a radius search around that address, and try to find houses that are as close to that house as possible. So that takes time. It probably takes me 10 to 15 minutes to get to put together a really good comp. Now if you're wholesaling, I mean, we look at, Jess and I, we're probably looking at 15 houses a week. 15 to 20. So to have someone run comps on all of those houses is very, very time consuming. So I have a couple of realtors that you can ask, and definitely take care of them. If they're going to run you comps, take them out to eat, get them gift cards, just compensate their time, because they don't get paid just to pull comps for you. So once you've figured out the ARV, then go to the appointment. You're going to look at the house, and you're going to figure out what the rehab is. Now if you're like a brand new wholesaler, like the gurus are teaching you, have no experience, at least get one of those rehab sheets where you can make check marks on, it needs a roof, it needs this, it needs that, and they kind of give you some ballpark figures. Or partner up with someone who's done rehabs, have them go with you and give an estimate on that. I get a lot of emails from wholesalers where they're like, this property only needs $5,000 in rehab. Now Nick kind of blew me up there. Outside of Nick, who's done a rehab for $5,000? I mean, it doesn't happen. My cheapest rehab this year is $7,500. That was paint, carpet, and appliances. And you don't really do a whole lot less than that if you're actually going to flip a property. So when a wholesaler's like, it only needs 5,000 in rehab, and I look at the house and it's 2,000 square feet, I'm like, well heck, half of that's paint and the other half is flooring. So get an accurate rehab number. Once you have your end value and then your rehab number, you can figure out what your max offer is. There's different formulas to do that. Probably the most common formula is where you take your ARV, you multiply it by 70%, you subtract your rehab, and then if you want to make a wholesale fee, you subtract the wholesale fee, and that's the highest you can offer. And if they don't take that, don't put it under contract, because you can't magically increase your ARV or cut shortcuts on the rehab and make the rehab budget. It's not going to work. So once you have your max offer, you make your offer, let's say they accept it, you put it under contract. The next thing you got to do if you're going to wholesale a property is you got to give the title company the contract, give the title company your earnest money, they'll start the title work, and then depending on what you're going to do, if you're going to assign it, you need to get people in there to find your buyer. Everything that we buy, we close on first, and we do that for a couple of reasons. I started closing on stuff because when you read about all the bad things wholesalers do, is they'll put a house under contract, they can't find a buyer because it's not a deal, because they don't know any of the numbers, and then they just back out and that seller's left there. They've maybe sold stuff, they've made plans, it really puts them in a bad situation. So I just made up my mind when I got started that I'm going to close on my houses before I sell it. Now that I do that, it's actually relieved a lot of issues, because I had this happen to an investor in the area. I had a house, I showed it to him, he wanted it, I was going to do one of those same day closes. My seller backed out, because her neighbor was like, oh, I'm selling my house for 100 grand, you're only selling yours for 30, what's going on? So she backed out. My buyer is like, dude, what's going on? I didn't buy another house because I was going to buy yours. There's nothing I could do about it. I tried to give her more money, blah, blah, blah. Ended up buying it a month later, but that guy had already put his money into something else. So I close on something, so if you're getting one of my wholesale deals, you can close 3 days later. You don't have to worry about it falling apart. So once you get under contract, start the title work, then you can assign it to somebody. By assigning it, it's a separate document. They basically pay you a fee, an assignment fee, to take over that purchase contract. Whatever you have in that purchase contract, they have to abide by that. Likewise, you can close on it and then resell it, or if you're going to keep it, rehab it, rent it, flip it, whatever. So when it comes to wholesaling, again, they have a bad reputation. Probably the biggest thing is just dishonesty. Who's got a deal from a wholesaler, you looked at it, and then you realized their ARV was garbage, their rehab estimate was garbage, everything about what they're emailing out is garbage. You see it all the time. With sellers, they'll go in there and they'll talk to sellers, and they have no experience, they've never bought a house, they've probably never bought anything, and they're like, oh, I'm a cash buyer, I'm going to buy your house, I'm going to close in 7 days, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. They talk about all the stuff they're going to do, and then their purchase contract is 12 pages long, and it has an out for everything imaginable. They need a 45-day inspection period, they need their 12 investors to approve the deal, and then because they don't know how to buy the house and get it under contract at a good price, they back out, they lie, they say all sorts of stuff. So if you're going to buy off market, whatever you're going to do, just be honest about it. Bad ARV, they're way off on the rehab. A big no-no, and this really bothers me because a lot of states are cracking down on wholesalers. Part of that is because a lot of new wholesalers, again, they're not pros on what they do, but you also have very strong realtor lobbyists that are lobbying against wholesalers. But this just bothers me all the time. They'll market houses that they don't have contracts for. Now, a lot will argue that if you have a contract, if you put earnest money down, that gives you equitable interest, allows you to market the title. I'll leave that up to the attorneys to argue, but you can't market a house that you don't have a contract for if you're not licensed as a realtor and you list it on the MLS. But we get emails from local wholesalers all the time. Hey, I have this house, it's 40 grand. You go look at it, and they don't even have a contract yet. All they're trying to do, because they're not confident in their ability to negotiate with a seller, is they see what the seller wants, and they try to throw a price on that to see if someone is dumb enough to give it to them. So if they don't have a contract, it's probably not a deal. And again, just chasing a pot of gold that some guru got them excited about, but they have no understanding on what the reality is to take to do well. Treat it like a business if you're going to find off-market deals in wholesale. I mean, again, when I got started, I was, a 12, 14, 15-hour day was normal. If I wasn't doing marketing or in front of a seller or trying to sell a house I had under contract, I was reading about it, I was networking with investors. The reason why I gained so much weight is because Dunkin' Donuts is my best friend. I mean, I go there all the time with investors to pick their brain, figure out how they're making their buying decisions, and by meeting with investors and figuring out why they buy certain ways, that allowed me, when I'm sitting down with a seller, to get the house at a price that I knew an investor would buy. All right, so be this guy.
So how many deals did you have to back out of?
I've never backed out of a deal.
When you were first starting?
Didn't have to back out of any. Because, I mean, when I got started and I didn't have money, I would go in, I would figure out what their situation was, because a lot of the times, I mean, I was getting the low-hanging fruit. These were houses that were vacant. I mean, one of the houses was a house in Calumet Park that had a huge fire on it. She already got the insurance money, and this was a house someone else that I had met on Bigger Pockets brought to me. She just didn't want the liability. So I was like, look, I'm not buying it because I'm not going to do an $80,000 rehab on it, but here's what I can do. I work with a bunch of investors that are looking for rehab. Let me put a lockbox on it, show them, they'll give you the price you want, they'll pay me for finding them a house. And I did that. Guy bought it for $6,000. She got 3, I got 3. He sold it for $145,000. I don't know how much he put into it, but he made a good deal. So, I had plenty of people like, no, if you can't buy it yourself, then it's not worth it. But I had enough people that wanted to get rid of the house, and did, as long as they got their number, they didn't care how it got done. Once I made enough money and started closing on myself, my only offers were, here's my cash offer, and if that's the case, I'm closing. A lot of wholesalers, and we have dozens of contracts that we can show you. You can get them from the gurus, and they have, they're putting down $10 earnest money. They have 45-day contracts. They have all sorts of stuff. Our purchase agreement is 2.5 pages long. The only out in it is that if we can't get clean title. And we'll close as quickly as they need to close, whether that's 3 days. Sometimes they need, I'm working on one now, the guy needs like 2 months to clean all his stuff out. I also put $1,000 in earnest money down. So Justin was at a house today. Someone offered $20,000, $10 in earnest money, 45-day contract. He offered $11,000. Close in a week, $1,000. It's pretty obvious who's the legit buyer.
Who's got the money
Yeah.
and who doesn't?
So we've had plenty of people that are taking our offers, which are substantially less, and they're only less because the person putting that offer in has no clue what they're doing, but they're taking the lower offer because they know what's going to get done. All right, so be this guy. Be honest. Let them know what your intentions are. You don't have to tell them how much profit you're going to make if you're going to buy their house off market, whether you're going to wholesale it or flip it, but just be honest. If you want to start wholesaling and you haven't partnered with anybody that has money, and you have to truly assign it, let them know what you're going to do. It's a sales job. So many people think, oh, you have to be good at sales because you're selling houses. That's the easy part. Have I ever had to sell you, Al, on a house? No, I give you the lockbox, you go. The sales part is when you're sitting down with the seller. It kind of seems backwards, but sales is basically figuring out what their problem is, offering them a solution to solve that problem. But they have to like and trust you first. So if you can't connect with people, if you can't build rapport with people, have a conversation and meet a stranger and then get them to like you quickly, don't even bother trying to get off-market deals. Because if they don't like and trust you within the first couple of minutes, it doesn't matter what price you give them, they're not going to sell you their house. Understand the numbers. Again, if you don't know the numbers, ask for help. Last year when I was working full-time, I did 3 houses with other investors that helped me out on it. And those 3 houses, we made $110,000, and I got 55 of that. So I essentially paid $55,000 for education, but that education helped me understand the numbers to put myself in a position where I don't need to rely on those people anymore. In addition to education, they also funded those deals for me. 2 of those were sight unseen, so you're paying for that. Always be learning, invest in yourself. Right after Justin and I partnered up last year, we were at a seminar in Phoenix, and they pitched us on joining their mastermind. So we joined their mastermind. It was $15,000. We had to cut the check that day to get that deal. We went back a week later. There were 12 other wholesalers in this group, and we talked for 2 days. And what I learned in those 2 days, if that was the only time I went, and I got to go 4 times, but if that meeting was the only time, it paid for that $15,000 many, many, many times over. Just from the different tools that we learned. There were a lot of things that I didn't know about, different tools that we could use that made things a lot easier, more efficient. So just invest in yourself. Read books about your market. Go to seminars. Do a lot of networking. You know, before I even put my first offer on a house, again, I had a huge buyer's list because I went to groups like this. I contacted other investors, and I just continued to learn. And then network, network, network. Who's heard the expression that your net worth is your network? Your bankroll is going to be most similar to the 5 people you hang out the most. So surround yourself with people that are successful in the field that you want to be successful with. Don't hang out with your friends at the bar that had a bad rental and cry about everything that happened. Go hang out with people that have 25 or 1,000 and are doing it because they have the same headaches too. They just know how to get past those and don't complain about that. And then provide value. That was the biggest thing when I was starting wholesaling, is providing value. You're providing value to the sellers when you help them out with their situation. And a lot of times it might not be just buying their house. It could be referring them. Maybe they can't sell their house on the MLS very easily because it needs some repairs. Well, if you know a contractor that can get it done for a cost that works for them, or I've referred people to attorneys for different situations. It may not benefit you financially, but provide value because they're going to remember that, and at some point they'll come back and help you out. And same thing, I mean, a lot of the guys in here that have bought houses from us have bought more than one house. Leave meat on the bones when you're selling a house because they're going to keep coming back to you. I spent a lot of time building my buyer's list, and I don't spend any time building that now because it's big enough and they come back for more and more. But if I don't send them a good deal and they don't make money on it, chances are they're not coming back again. So I'm going to have to continue to work to build that buyer's list. That's kind of self-explanatory. This is not a part-time work from your mom's basement making $1 million a year. This is a work your butt off every day, weekends. I mean, I'm Black Friday, everyone's going to be out shopping. I'm looking at a house because he's out of state, he's in town. That's the only time he can show it. And if I get it at the price that he wants it at, it's probably going to be a very lucrative deal. All right, couple of quick tips for getting started. Pick a small area. Don't try to wholesale all of Northwest Indiana. I'd probably pick 1 or 2 towns that you can do. And then marry that area. And what I mean by marry that area is learn as much as you can about that area. Start with the school systems. Know what school districts are going to be the best. Even in Munster, they have 3 grade schools. The difference in values between the neighborhoods for each of those grade schools are completely different. So just because someone has a house in Munster that's a quad, depending on where it is in town, the values are going to be significantly different. And every town has pockets that are going to be like that. You know, you have North Maryville, South Maryville, even though we can't say that anymore. When you're talking with a seller and you're trying to build rapport, you got to talk about things that are in common. So, Lowell's football team just made it to semifinals or something like that. So when you're talking and you see the flag in their yard, hey, that game was pretty cool. So know the politics of that area. Know if that area is a good rental market or a good flip market. When I got started 2 years ago, Hammond, for the most part, was a really good rental area. So I had to learn how the buyers were buying them for rentals. As the values have gone up, it's turned into both a good rental and a flip area. You know, someplace like Munster and Highland, for the most part, those are better flip areas. So just know your market really, really well. Network with investors in that area. Find the investors that are flipping in that area. Find the investors that are buying rentals in that area. Take them to Dunkin' Donuts, have a couple of coffees and some donuts, and just pick their brain about how they buy things that they look for in that specific area. Every town in Northwest Indiana, the buyers buy differently. So you gotta know why they're buying. Start a small marketing campaign, something that you can either do on your own or use a third-party company for that, but something that comfortably fits your budget. Once you are making profits, roll your profits. Don't go out and buy a new car or do some, you know, go to the casino or go on a big trip. Take that money and reinvest it back into your company, whether that's buying software that might make it easier, increasing your marketing from 300 letters to 1,000 letters, but just reinvest that back into your business. So that's all I have on finding off-market deals and wholesaling. And you know, we could, each of those different ways that we find deals, analyzing the deals, assigning it, finding buyers, we could probably do like a 4-day seminar on that. If you're interested in that, I can connect you with a couple of groups that will charge you a lot of money to do that, since we don't do that yet. But I just want to give you a general overview on how we find deals, a couple of ideas that you can do to actually maybe go out and find some yourself. So, any questions? I just gave you all the secret sauce. Just trained all my competition.
Thanks. You guys,
Go ahead.
do you guys have virtual assistants?
I do not have virtual assistants yet. I like dealing with real people. Part of that's because I like to control things. And I feel if I'm dealing with someone that is not local and I can't see and touch them, well maybe not touch them, but you know, help them out in person, I just don't feel like having much control.
Did you guys have an attorney write your contracts?
We did have an attorney prepare our contract, yes. We use attorneys a lot for a lot of things.
Okay.
Joe?
So you find a vacant house earlier, you said, when you're driving for money, right?
Yep.
Profits. How do you find out who the owner is? Vacant? What's
So
the best way?
So if you drive around by a house that looks like junk,
Yeah.
I used to call it my POS list, and then my wife told me I need to be more professional. I hope she doesn't watch this video. No, you go to the treasurer's website, and you put in the address, and then it's going to show you who the owner is, and it's going to have their mailing address.
The Lake County Treasurer.
Lake County Treasurer, yep.
Yeah.
Make sure the house is in Lake County when you're looking at it.
Right,
The house.
yeah.
Porter has a treasurer, or their assessor site is harder to use, but it still is there.
What's your threshold on it? I'm trying to base it off of your calculation of the 70% less the rehab costs and whatnot versus, like, what's your threshold for perhaps like a good lease option? Like, so say you are in a great market, like a St. John,
Right.
Munster, Valpo, in some areas where you know, at least you can probably project that the market values are gonna be doing pretty well going into the future thereafter too, where maybe you're not gonna be at that 30% plus, maybe there's no rehab costs in as well. I mean, so it might be a better lease option, you know,
Right.
calculation. You know what I'm trying to say? Is
I
there a
haven't-
calculation?
It's all gonna be based on what your exit strategy is.
Sure.
I don't do a whole lot of creative stuff.
Right.
I did one deal when I got started where I put it under contract, and the house had been vacant for a long time. He just got tired of having it as a rental, put it under contract, and we had the agreement that he would sell or finance it at 5% interest only for 2 years. And the house was 120. I ended up selling it for like 124. It was, I made a lot of work to not make a whole lot. But then right before closing, he saw that it switched from my name to someone else's name because I had assigned it. Even though I told him that's what I was doing, but that was, 2 months ago because it took a long time to sell the house. He's like, hey, I thought I was doing this all with you. Now I got to deal with this other person. Now it's worked out well. He's actually in the process now because it's been 2 years of refinancing. But right there, and at the time I didn't know any better, but I'm not going to talk to a seller and talk to them about seller financing or anything creative and then go and sell that option, because they do that because they trust me. So if I'm going to do that, I'll keep that myself. But But when it comes to the numbers, that 70 minus, rehab minus, those are all subjective. It's based on what your buyers are gonna pay. 2 years ago, that was a good rule. Nowadays, it's almost impossible to find a house at 70% minus rehab. I mean, buyers are willing to pay more. If it's a rental property, they'll typically pay, depending on the market, maybe 80–85% minus rehab. If it's in a nicer area, they may buy it at 75–80% minus rehab, because they're not gonna make the same percentages profit, but if they can still make 30 grand, and maybe it's only 18% instead of 22, they're still going for the money. As things slow down, those numbers will probably fall more into line with what all the gurus teach and all the special formulas they give.
How do you verify the mortgage liens and other liens? I mean, public records you can do.
Yeah, so when I'm looking at a house, I'll go, before I even go to the house, because I want to have as much information as possible, I'll ask them, do you have any liens, judgments, or anything on the house that might make it difficult to sell? And they may or may not tell you, but I'm going to go to the Lake County Recorder's website, and I'm going to put in their address and search for the last recorded mortgage. And then you can open the mortgage, see what the amount was. There's websites out there that just Google average interest rate, mortgage interest rate, and it gives you a chart, if you find the one that I'm thinking of, where it breaks down every month for years, and it gives you the average rate. So then you can go to an amortization calculator, put in their loan amount, put in when they started the loan and the average rate, and kind of estimate where their mortgage is, and then you know kind of where you, if you have enough room to offer based on the rehab. And that's where you find the county, the recorder site, they'll show sewer liens, city judgments, all sorts of other stuff.
I think you want to be careful analyzing it too much though, because I mean I have a house on my board right now. It's actually a weird situation, kind of family friend, but she's gonna bring $40,000 to closing to sell the house. She wants to sell it that bad. She's gonna think about it. She's gonna pay $40,000 to sell the house. So make the offer where it needs to be. And if they need to get rid of it, they will. They'll let all the mortgages. I mean, if they just took out a mortgage last year, they may not. But if somebody wants to save their credit or they just want to be out of a house bad enough, I mean, people have probably brought over $100,000 to closings this year with us. I mean, part of it is knowing who you're working with. Our new CRM system, if I have an email and a phone number in there, it'll automatically pull every social profile they have on the internet, so I can research who I'm going to see before I go there. Because I want to know who I'm working with. Am I working with somebody that I have to watch my back when I'm going there? You know, do they have a Facebook profile with guns everywhere? I mean, seriously, you gotta know who you're working with. You don't go hunting deer without knowing anything about deer, you know?
And Charlie died. So,
Charlie?
yeah.
Did it? If you go on, not the investor group Facebook page, but my Invest NWI page, that's where I post the houses that we're wholesaling. So we buy under Region, Home Buyers, that's the actual name of the company, but then all of the marketing that I do to sell it is under Invest NWI. I don't want to post a picture on my Region page of me buying their house. I'm buying the house from Tom, and then the next day later I'm posting the same house where I'm selling it. So the branding is separate. That's why when I've had people like, hey, you got like 4 business cards, a bunch of different emails, is because I have emails for buyers, emails for sellers, so I keep it separated. But if you go on the Invest NWI Facebook page, go under the videos. The videos are bad. Again, I'm not an actor or anything like that, but the information is good. I have 3 videos on there where I show you how to use the assessor's website, the treasurer's website, and then the recorder's website. So they're all probably 5 to 7 minutes long. Again, they're not high quality videos, but it helps you learn how to use those websites.
When you're wholesaling a house, how do you determine how much to mark it up? Is it a flat amount? Is it
no? It's based on it's based on formulas for the buyers. So let's say the house is worth $100,000, and the buyer is flipping it. So he or she probably wants to be all in at 70 grand. Well, if the house needs 25 in rehab, and he or she needs to buy it at 45 grand. So if I'm a good negotiator and I get it at 20, I'm marking up 45. If I'm not a good negotiator, or their situation is the way it is, or whatever, and I get it at 30, then I mark it up. So I'm selling it where most buyers are gonna buy it. Whether I get it here or here, it doesn't matter. Now, I say most buyers. Right now, I was talking with a guy last week, and he's like, your prices are just too high for me. He does a really high-end rehab. He doesn't really stretch the market, so he has to buy, and he buys at 65% minus rehab. I got people buying at 75% minus rehab. So I'm like, as long as the market's tight the way it is, probably not gonna sell to you, because I have plenty of other people that are gonna pay more. Which is good, because, you know, houses that I was buying for, those slab houses in Hammond last year, I could buy for 15 grand all day long. If I can get one for 25 or 30 now, that's a good deal. I mean, it's just, I'm not buying them as cheap as I used to.
Should have held them for a year.
I probably should have. Would you like to lend me some money so I can sit on a bunch of houses?
We can talk.
Okay. Mike.
Say you are working full-time, but you want to kind of integrate some of these wholesaling techniques.
Yep.
Not to become a full-time wholesaler, but just more for buying, to get better deal flow. Are there any specific of these like 6 that you would really recommend looking at? Because you can't constantly be handling calls if you have like that full-time job, unless you're, you know, doing the 16 hours a day. I guess you have to work harder, but.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I would recommend, because you're gonna have to take the calls one way or the other. You're gonna have to go see the houses. You're gonna have to, you know, a lot of people don't realize how much time we put into dealing with all the messes that come up with title work.
Right.
I mean, cleaning judgments, weird stuff, tracking down. You know, so many people think that, hey, I'm just gonna quit claim the property and get rid of it and be done with it, but that really clouds the title. So we've had situations where we've had to chase down people where the title didn't transfer appropriately, so we had to get different affidavits and redo stuff. So we spent a ton of time behind scenes just to get it where we could close. So if you're trying to do it part-time, I'm not really sure.
I mean, because I love the idea of starting a small campaign and building up from that.
What I would do is I would probably partner with someone who does it full-time. Maybe you do the marketing, but if a lead comes in, they handle it, and then if you're keeping it, you buy it for a certain amount over what they get it for. Or if you just want to wholesale it, then you have a percentage that you're going to wholesale it. I mean, I have wholesalers bring me deals all the time, and I tell them we're going to do one of 2 things. You're going to have it under contract, you're going to bring me the contract, and I'll buy it for you just like any other investor if it works for me. Or if you want me to go to the house, work with the seller, negotiate it, put it under contract, close with my money, deal with all the title issues, find a buyer, and we're going to split it 75-25. Where we get 75, you get 25. And we have plenty of people that do that because, 1, they want to learn, and we'll teach them along the way, but 2, they'd rather get something as opposed to nothing. And a lot of time, the 25% that they're getting is more than what they would get if they tried to do it all on their own.
You're talking about the sales and getting into like the living room close, getting in there and talking to them.
Right.
Can you share any tips or tricks or funny stories or anything that you kind of came across as you were starting?
Listen, let them talk. And that's the biggest thing when it comes to sales, is whoever talks most loses. So if you get in there and you're like trying to beat it down their face why they need to sell to you, why you need it so low. If you get in there, and a lot of the gurus are going to teach us, you're walking around the house, you're like, oh my, that is bad. And if you really emphasize all the bad things about the house, and they're teaching you that because they want you to help the seller realize how bad their house is. They know, they live in the house, they see it all every day, it bothers them too. But if you're saying stuff about how bad their house is, you're just offending them. So just, I mean, 1, build rapport, you gotta like them, you gotta make them feel important. So get on the same page with them, you know, ask them a couple of questions about why they are selling, you know, a big question like that is, you know, how quickly would you like to sell? You know, some of my sellers need 2 months to clean all their stuff out, find a place to go. Some people need to sell in a week. What are you? And whatever they say, you know, ask a follow-up question, why do you need a week? And let them talk and talk and talk, and when you think they're done talking, stick your hand out and let them talk some more. And they'll give you all of the answers that you need. and then look at the house and let them know, hey, I'm on cash, I'm paying all the closing costs, taking it as is, there's no appraisals, there's no inspections, and I can close in a week, but here's the number I gotta be at. Does that work for you? Yes, boom, boom, let's get it done. And then don't disappear, you know, we let them know, hey, we sent them the earnest money, we get an email back that we got a receipt from the title company for the earnest money, we make sure they got that. We let them know when we get the title work, if there's any issues, we call them, hey, are you ready to schedule closing? All right, well, here's your closing documents, that's your side, that's your purchase price, that's the tax prorations, that's what you walk away with. This is our side of the purchase price, tax proration credit, all the closing costs that we agreed that we pay for, that's what we have to pay for the house. Walk them through all that, they show up to closing, there's no surprises. They give you the keys, they cry and tell you how thankful they are that you took care of their problem, and then they tell all your friends about you. And some call and cuss you out.
How often do you follow up with somebody that's on the fence? What's your frequency?
It depends on their situation. A lot of it.
If they're definitely not in a hurry, they don't want to be bothered too much, but yeah.
I'll probably do a 2-week, a 30-day, a 60-day follow-up.
Okay.
I've had plenty of situations where I looked at a house, they didn't take my offer, they talked about how they were going to, you know, they had people, you know, there was one in Maryville I offered 45. House was pretty rough. This was last year. I'd offer 40. I'd offer 60 now. You know, they were going to rehab it and blah blah blah. Well, I would go to follow up like 2 months later, and they sold it to another wholesaler for 47. And I'm like, if I had just not bought all the garbage they were telling me and actually followed up a week or two later, I would have paid the 47.
Might have shot your price too.
They probably did, but I didn't follow up. But that wholesaler sold it for 68, which I wouldn't have done. I probably would have sold it for 55. But most of my buyers are in-state and actually look at the properties.
2 questions. First one, CRM, because your organization and everything, you know your numbers. I appreciate that. So how do you guys keep track of that? And then second question was, are you walking into these properties knowing everything about taxes and liens and all that information, or are you doing that research afterwards?
So he asked 2 questions. I'm going to answer the second question first because that was the easier. He asked, am I going into the properties knowing the taxes and the liens? I know as much as I can see online. So I'm going to go to the treasurer's site. I'm going to know what the taxes are. Because if I'm putting an offer, and a lot of times they're going to ask, you know, if you're offering 50, what am I walking away with? Well, you got to kind of explain, hey, you got tax proration, so you know, a house I'm buying this month, they basically are losing a year of taxes. Yeah, you're going to get your 50 grand minus 3,000 in taxes. The second question he asked was CRM. That's how we manage all of our leads. We use a system called Podio. There's a bunch of different systems out there, and I can get the system we use is Podio, but we buy it from someone that does it specifically for wholesalers. When I got started, I just used a bunch of Excels. Which got hard because I started mailing to 5 or 6 lists, all on the same phone number. So they call in, and I'm like, are you calling because you're an old dying person? Are you calling because you're an out-of-state? Because how you talk to them is going to be totally different. So when I mentioned I went to that mastermind and learned a ton, they hooked us up with a website where all the numbers come to our phone number, but every piece of mail I send out, like each different campaign or the billboards I do, or all of our marketing has its own phone number. So I can tell you specifically each piece of marketing that we do, how many calls we get, how many appointments we go on, how many houses we buy, the cost of leads for that system. But before I answer the call, it tells me call from absentee list, call from dead people list, call from code violation or something like that. So before they cuss me out, I at least know why they're going to cuss me out. No, it helps. I mean, some of those calls were people that were delinquent on their taxes. And a lot of times they're denying that they're delinquent on their taxes until you calm them down, get them to like you, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, I was delinquent, but I paid them current. Well, ignore the letter, even though it says you may have been delinquent at one point. Did you forget to read the part where it said may? So, I think I saw, Mike?
Do you guys have your real estate licenses? Or?
I do.
Do you feel like that's been a pro, con, doesn't really matter, like any disclosure issues?
No, I was hesitant to get licensed initially because of disclosure issues. Talked with my broker, he didn't think it was a big deal. When I go into a house, I give them options. Again, I'm providing value. So based on your situation here, I can pay you cash, take it as is, we can be done in a week, you don't have to show, all the pros to selling cash. However, if you want more, here's where I probably would list it at. And I'll let them know, there are people out there, especially in this market, that are making bad buying decisions. I've had plenty of Dunkin' Donuts with people walking through numbers, and they call me a week later and like, hey, I just bought the deal. Oh, the one that we decided wasn't a good deal? So there are people that are making dumb decisions buying houses on the MLS. I'll tell them that, but there are also pros and cons for that. So I give them pros and cons for both ways. My con when you're selling me is you're not going to get the most money, but you're going to be done in a week. You can list it, you can get a lot more, and I'll happily list it for you and shop it to my buyers too. So that's how I sold the duplex this weekend. He wasn't taking my cash offer because it was significantly lower than the offer that he got.
And no real changes like to the websites or direct mail, like you don't like run into like a major speed bump with like disclosure or anything like that? It's not like a thing? Okay.
So I tell them, when I'm looking at a house, I'm like, yeah, I'm licensed. If you want to list it with me, I'll list it. If you want cash sale, cash sale. If you want to go with your best friend's niece who's a realtor and sells one house a year, you can go with her too. And they always go with her because they like and trust her. Even though I know I'm probably the best fit for them.
How do you manage your partnership?
What do you mean by that?
You're relatively new as partners within the last year or so, right?
Uh-huh.
And you have a corporation, everything's 50-50.
We manage it with beer and guns. One of my mentors growing up, and this is something they mentioned at the mastermind that we're in, do your divorce before you get divorced. So, everything we did was on paper before we were together. So yeah, we're 50-50, but if something were to go south, but again, just like anything that you're doing, whether it's a marriage or whatever, you gotta be on the same page, you gotta have the same long-term goals and visions. We have the same core values, so.
As far as the business goes, I do most of the buying, he does most of the selling, from a business point of view.
We follow your expertise.
Who works harder?
Tracy.
So you guys are actually married then.
I probably see, I definitely see you more. The who works harder part, I honestly can't answer that. Because I
have a
think
partnership,
we both
you don't even think about it,
We both work too much, that's the
do
problem.
what you gotta do.
So if you're spending $52,000 a year on marketing at a 0.03 return, why are you still marketing it?
Because we bought 22 houses that way. And our average wholesale deal is 12,500, so do the math, that comes out to
8,000.
Yeah.
Google pay-per-click is expensive. You're paying between $60 and $137 every time somebody clicks on our website, whether they want to sell or not.
So all of, just direct mail, I'm the numbers guy, so I've knocked it down. Every campaign that we send out, I track the callback percentage, how many of those are leads, how many we go on appointments, how many of those appointments convert to contracts, and then the value that we get from that. My worst list, which is the biggest list, is probably the people that have the least motivation. For every dollar we spend, we get $1.80 back. Now it's still making money, but it's a grind. Some of the smaller lists that are higher motivation, and I can't make them bigger because of the type of list they are, we just don't have a big enough population. I'll spend $1, I'll get $8 back. But on average for direct mail, it's probably you spend $1, get $7 back. So, yeah, you spend a lot, but.
Well, that wasn't kind of the way you displayed it though,
Okay.
Do you understand what I mean by that?
Yeah, I didn't go into the profit parts on that.
Right, you just said I spent 52 grand for 78,000.
Well, figure whoever's buying houses, whether you're flipping or wholesaling, if you bought 22 houses this year to flip, you're making some decent money.
Sure.
To spend 50 to get 22, you would do it, right?
All day long.
So, I just do all the hard work for you.
Let's spend 100 to get 22.
Outside of cleaning them out.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Awesome. Whoa.
Thank you.
So if you have more questions, or if it's something specific to your situation, don't hesitate to grab my card. Probably the best way to get a hold of me is just to email me. I get my email all the time. I read it right away. I do not always respond right away just because of how busy we are. But if you're emailing me a question, I'm going to flag it. And chances are once the kids have gone to bed and I'm watching the Bears lose or something like that, then I'll go ahead and respond. But it may be a day or two later. Phone calling right now is crazy bad just because of how busy we are. Anybody have any deals? Anything they're trying to wholesale? Something that they might want to do a joint venture on? Someone that needs money? Someone that has money? Al?
Yep. So, Al Perez, Preferred Homes. I fix and flip houses. Right now I've got about 3 houses under contract to sell. So I've got a good amount of liquidation happening. So I'm looking at buying about 5 to 6 houses. So any wholesalers out there, if you want to talk with me, that would be great. Thank you.
What areas?
Maryville, Highland, Portage, Dyer, Cherville, primarily. Yep. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything that they're looking for, offering? We are looking for, and we're still working on the exact position, but I'm looking for someone who can sell our houses. They do need a license. One of the reasons I got licensed, someone asked, again, you saw how many calls that we get. We're only buying 50%, or we're, out of the 378 people that had called in that wanted to sell, we're only buying 22 of those houses. So one of the reasons I got licensed was to have the option of converting some of those to a listing. And I think I've done 16 houses in the 4 months that I've been licensed, and that's been a good chunk of the marketing that we spend. So that was part of it, was to be able to monopolize some of those leads. But we are looking for a licensed person to join our team within the next probably 60 days.
Where did you get your license? Was it an online course or was it something local?
No, I did a local class through Macaulay. I did like their Accelerate one, which was crazy because it's like every day for 5 weeks. Yeah, someone taught part of that class. It was the most exciting part of that class. No, I mean the course I did was every day for 5 weeks, 4 hours a day, and I didn't even, I thought, yeah, I can handle 4 hours a day. I didn't factor in all the reading and stuff I had to do at the end.
8 hours a day, 3 weeks.
That would have been
The condensed,
even, yeah,
more than yours.
yeah.
That you just went through.
I can imagine. That's a lot of info. I mean, and I was already doing this for a year and a half, so I already knew a lot about the liens and judgments, and but yeah, it was still a lot of
6
information.
hours of homework every day.
Yeah, it was a lot.
My business partner, Dominic, is my dad, so we're looking for more properties as well. We have lots of money, but nothing, we haven't been able to find anything right now. We just had one go on the market in Dyer last week, hopefully be selling here soon. So we have about $700,000 we can spend, so we're looking for houses.
Cool.
Get 900, I know someone.
Yeah,
I get 900 apparently.
Yeah.
For 6 acres. Did you say you just went through?
900,000. That's a deal.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah. What was that?
I'm sorry, did you say you just want to buy and flip? Is that what you?
Yes, he's looking for flips. Yep. One of my big goals next year, and some of you in here may have a similar goal, I want to buy a large multifamily, something 150, 200 units. If you're interested in chatting with me about that, I'll probably be looking for a couple of partners on that. If that's something that interests you, don't hesitate to reach out to me on that.
Any specific area you're looking?
Indiana. and I want big. Something fun, something challenging.
I'll go in on that with you.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? Cool. Next month, December 18th, I may or may not be here, but we're going to do 2017 in a review. So we're going to do success stories, cookies, and then networking. Again, probably the biggest part of the value of this group is networking. So we're going to spend a lot of, have a couple of different things that we'll be doing for that to help you to get to know people, make some contacts for that. We're going to have a lot of Christmas cookies. And then I'm looking for 5 or 6 people that would be willing to do what Nick did today and talk about a real estate success story that they had this year. And it could be a not success. Some of the best lessons we learn are from failures. So if you had a flip that completely flopped this year and you're not embarrassed to talk about it, that's something that a lot of people could learn. If you had a flip that went successful, something that you landed on, it could be something unique. And you're willing to take 5 to 7 minutes and do a quick chat. I'd like to do 5 or 6 of those next month in addition to the networking that we'll be doing. We'll probably have a couple of giveaways, and next month is free. Whether you're a member, guest, it's free. I do ask that you bring 1 of 2 things, and if you don't bring 1 of 2 things, it's going to be $10 for you. Bring gift cards to either like Meijer or Walmart. And those are going to go to a family in Hammond who had a house fire about a month ago. Some of you probably saw us share the GoFundMe for that. We've been able to buy a little bit of material for that house. There's a bunch of investors that are getting together to rebuild this lady's house. But I don't think a lot of people have actually thought that once she moves back in, she's not going to have anything in her cabinet. She's not going to have any toiletries. So part of this is to help her up, but also part of this is Hammond hates investors. I mean, I'm not going to fool you there. I've had lunch with a lot of the people in the building department, and they don't sugarcoat it.
Trying to find your site.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, it was a good deal.
Yeah.
If I didn't want to put my money into a big multifamily, I would have bought it myself.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, Hammond doesn't like investors, so my thought is if we can pull together a bunch of money and gift cards to give them, it's just going to show that we're not a bunch of slumlords that are greedy and trying to make a killing off everybody. So either bring gift cards or bring non-perishable food, canned goods, bring a whole big sack, and we're going to donate it to a couple of food banks here in the area. So that is next month. Now for membership, again, it's $90 for an individual, $135 for a couple. That's good for 12 months. It gives you access to all of the videos that we've done either in the past and in the future. Or you can continue to pay $10 per month per person. So we have, I'm assuming we probably have some vegetables left. I can see vegetables. There may be some chili. I'm guessing all the cookies are gone. But we're going to move the chairs aside, and if you want to stay late and network, bring business cards, take business cards, and make some connections. So thanks for coming, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Real quick before everybody leaves, because a lot of you don't know each other, just by kind of raise of hands. Who's an attorney? I know Matt, you are. Anybody else an attorney? If you're looking for an attorney, you're looking to network with somebody, there's an attorney. Real estate agents, who we have? Diane, Nick, Don, Adrien, Lisa. Rehabbers? Probably half the people, right? So if you're looking